Hey everyone, it's Jeff Fisher of High School Football America, the guy on the other side of the box. Well, he doesn't really need any introduction. Bill Hemmer of Fox News, but he's not here to talk news. He's here to talk about being a defensive back for the elder Panthers back in the day. Thanks for taking some time with me, Bill.
Jeff, good to be with you. Thank you. Back in the day, like way.
Man, we're about 5 years apart, but when I say defensive back, Bill Hemmer, elder Panthers, what kind of memories come back into your brain?
Well, I think the first thing you think about when you think about elder football, Cincinnati, Ohio, southwest corner of the state. We had a great league, still do in fact, Greater Catholic League, the GCL. Some refer to as the Greater Cincinnati League, and really great competition. St. Xavier and Muller, Roger Bacon, LaSalle, and Elder. I mean, really good teams.
Yes.
And we would draw players who lived directly in that district from local Catholic parishes, and we'd go at it on a Friday night. And I know they do this very well in Western Pennsylvania. I think they do it very well in the state of Texas and a few other states as well. But Ohio football is right up there with all the good ones, all the good programs that produce really good talent, and they feed the bigger colleges, medium-sized colleges. But Elder was special because of the tradition and the history that came with the school. All boy Catholic. Back then we had about 1,000 boys. It's a little less than that today. And we have on our campus still today a concrete horseshoe that's built into the ground, it would look like. It sits below the school, and it holds 10,000 people. And I'm really proud to say that, Elder High School sells out, and it's an awesome site on a Friday or Saturday night.
Back then, right? It's the Pit.
Fridays, but yeah, it's called the Pit, and it has been voted one of the best places in America to see a high school football game.
Oh yeah.
And it has often been voted as the best place to see a high school football game on a Friday night in the state of Ohio. So that's good company.
It's on my bucket list. I've gone to a lot of stadiums, hundreds of them around the country. I haven't gotten there, but I've been told I need to be there. When did you start playing football? Were you a young kid, 8, 9, 10 years old?
Yeah, I was a third grader. So what does that make me? 8 or 9, right? Yep. My older brother, Andy, who was a really good football player. He was about twice my size and twice as tough. And later went on to play at Elder and then Boston College for 4 or 5 years during the Flutie years. So they had some really good teams at BC and Newton, Mass. One day, he had gone to football practice and came home and said, "Hey, Billy, I brought you home an application." I really hadn't thought about it, didn't have much interest in it. I was in third grade at the time. And we had a league called the Fifth Quarter Bandits. And so, I mean, we were all about that big. And we were eager, but we were small and slow. And so what they allowed us to do was to play a quarter before we went pony, peewee, varsity.
Okay.
So that's 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8. And then after 8th grade, we go into high school. In 9th grade, it takes you to Elder. So the Fifth Quarter Bandits played a quarter before the peewee football game. So that's about as young as you can get legally to play the game back then.
Yeah, I was a 64-pound nose tackle when I was 8 years old, junior peewee in Eastern Pennsylvania. Hey, Bill, talk to me a little bit about your love of sports and youth sports at that. I watched you on the air all these years. I know you love it. Does that all go back to those early days when you cut your teeth, being that guy playing before the peewee games and all that?
Yeah. I have to think that's where the concept for team begins inside of you as an individual.
Yes.
I think it's also, look, it's, you're 8 years old and you're rolling around in the dirt for 3 hours a day at practice. And, you got to take some hits and get the body warmed up. So, yeah, I think it builds a lot of character. There's no doubt about it. You learn how to get along with other people at the same time. I think that skill's inherent in me though, because I always think about team, and even to this day, I'm 56 years old, and the team we have in America's Newsroom on Fox every day, I think about them as a team, and everybody's got their job, and everybody has to execute, come ready to play every day, and accomplish what we want to accomplish, which are good, clean shows that are smart and have a little bit of speed in them.
Yeah.
And if news is breaking, we get on it, and the only way we can do that and we function that way is if we operate as a team. So I have to think the genesis for that, Jeff, starts when you're 8 years old. Yes.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that I've hired through the course of time. I would always ask them if they played sports, because I always felt that was a good basis. So we have that in common. So
we have a management program here.
Okay.
And just in the last year, I've heard from a lot of colleagues that is a question in the program. What sports did you play when you were young, and were they team sports? I think it's very intriguing that you would pick up on that.
Yeah, I always joke with Trish, our co-founder here at High School Football America, that she was a gymnast. That's a solo thing. Yeah, it wasn't really team. Yeah, they might have had a team score, but that's an argument for another time with me and her. But you talk about character. I read an article, and I think it might have been maybe the paper or online at Elder, that you said there was a point maybe before your sophomore year that you were like, I don't know if I'm going to do that this year.
Yeah.
Tell that story.
Yeah, you're good. I mean, you did your research. I was a sophomore. A couple of my buddies got called up to varsity, which was a big deal then. You wanted to be one of those guys. I was not. So I was turning a little sour on it a little bit. I was like, maybe this isn't for me after all. Went home, and my dad came down to the basement, and he said, you might want to think about this overnight. And I was like, oh, wow, you care. Well, I care too. And woke up the next morning. I was right back in the coach's office and said, my mistake. Coach Backus, will you please take me back? And he readily agreed to that. And so there was a moment there. I tell you what, I don't know, Jeff. I would have really kicked myself for many, many years had I stuck with that initial decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think going back there was one of the best decisions I made, to be with my buddies, to work hard in the off season, to rise to the challenge on a Friday night and the weekends, to play your guts out for, your coaches and your teammates and your school. The pride of Elder High, mm-hmm. Our football team and our Purple Panthers was something that we took it very seriously. And
I do.
Like some of the viewers who will be watching this be like, well, we did too. But we really took it seriously. I mean, we wanted to be as good as we could be.
Mm-hmm. And little character building there too. I mean, having to go into your coach and then maybe your teammates after that. I mean, what was the little thing you gave him? I mean, what was the little speech, the little glue onto the Gipper thing?
No, I think it was just the coach. I didn't have the guts to tell my buddies. So maybe that was another good decision too. But having my dad take an interest in that, I was like, you're right.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
I'm grateful he did, Jeff.
Tell me about, I'm a huge fan of coaches. I think that, well, first off, they're underpaid when you talk about the high school level at all, whether it's football, field hockey, basketball, but they have such a huge role in society nowadays. Tell me about some of the things you remember about your coaches and lessons learned from them.
Wow. They were cool. They were tough. They were fair. Some of them were funny. They all had a distinct personality and a different character. I always looked up to them, and they were the adults in the room when we were growing up. Very much thought that we needed to follow them. And of course we had our captains on the field, and we had our leaders in the huddle. But the coaches really, they were the glue to that team. And I tell you, I mentioned the league we played in. So we had these huge rivalries.
Oh, yeah.
And when my junior year, we had a game against Moeller. And Moeller had been good for 20 years. And Jerry Faust had just gone on to Notre Dame to be the head coach there. And so there were a lot of, I think Steve Clowney was the head coach for Moeller that year, and his son played as a linebacker, later went on to Michigan State. Really great squad. And we were undefeated, and they were undefeated. and we played at the University of Cincinnati. So that's Nippert Stadium. And number one, number two in the state, number one, number two in the city. And we were ready to go at it. We really thought we had a good shot because we had not beaten Moeller in years. Came close, but weren't able to get over the top. And they were winning state titles year after year after year. We go running out of that tunnel at the University of Cincinnati, and there's 35,000 people. And just a sea of human beings. You know, you're 16 years old, right?
No doubt.
And first play of the game, we had a play called early in the week. Our quarterback, Dan O'Brien, was going to hit Dave Ottenreeb on a down and out about 18 yards. And sure enough, boom, 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 80 yards for a touchdown. So we're up 7-0. We ended up losing 15-7 that year. But back then, people may not remember, you know, back before you had ESPN, that you didn't see high school football highlights on CBS. Yep. Well, the next day, CBS Sports ran it before the Notre Dame game as part of a way to tell the story of Jerry Faust, et cetera. And they ran the highlights. And I mean, we were like, whoa, that's cool. We would have much rather have won that game. But just to be recognized at a national level at a young age when it really did not happen was a neat experience.
Maybe your first time on television, if you've got into any of those highlights there, Bill. A couple more for you. And thank you so much for the time. So you stick it out as a sophomore, and by the end, you're an all-city, all-Cincinnati defensive back. Now, this is before, you know, 3 stars, 4 stars, 5, all that good stuff. So how many stars were you back then? What was your strength? What was your weakness?
I thought, you know, I wasn't the fastest on the field, but I would hit. I had a big, thick neck, and that was kind of like my weapon. Always led with my head, which they may not like these days.
Not allowed.
I think, you know, we look back then when they only took 2 schools for the playoffs, and now I was just looking at the regional coverage. They take 10. So we would have made the playoffs every year back then, had it been constructed that way. No, I'm not sore about it. So we missed the playoffs my junior and senior year. But my junior year, I had 3 fumble recoveries in the first half against Roger Bacon at home. And then my senior year, I had 3 interceptions in the second half against Roger Bacon on their field. So I guess maybe those 2 games stick out the most.
You were pretty good. You were pretty good. So yeah, the recruiting stuff now with giving kids stars, you know, it's just crazy stuff. So I love the way your memory comes back like it was yesterday. I'm 5 years older than you, like I said. And so now as you move forward in life, do you ever get the kind of the desire or the notion that maybe you're going to play college football? Did that ever enter your mind?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was 5'11", and I didn't get a lot of looks. I made a few visits to Division III schools, and I just figured if I wasn't going to get a scholarship, I wasn't going to use the time to put into it. So I started looking in a different direction. I ended up going to Miami of Ohio, which is a great school, especially then. Still is today, but it was a great school back then. And so I stayed within the state, but knew that my time suiting up was coming to an end.
Yeah.
But then we had an intramural hockey team, and I tell you, my buddy Chip Miller got in a fight, and you know, we had equipment on, right? So you felt that sense of protection that you would feel as a football player. And he was on the ground. This guy was on top of him, and I don't know, man. I went flying in there, and I led with my head, and I hit this guy, and I don't know. I felt like I was back on the field. So that was. Anytime you have that physical sensation, you know what I'm talking about, Jeff. And you can
no, absolutely been there, done that sort of thing.
Hey, Jeff, it felt good.
Well, you know, I kind of tell everybody that. Although when I wrote my book on Texas football, I interviewed Mean Joe Green, and Joe swore up and down to me. He said, Jeff, if anybody tells you they like being hit, they're lying to you. So I said, but what if you're hitting? He said, that's a different story. So.
Right. That's a different story.
Hey, you kind of touched on this, but this is a question from Trish she wanted me to ask you, which is, how does football this day, and I know you talked about, you know, at Fox with the teamwork and all that, but is there anything specifically you can point to about what you learned on the gridiron that you may use day in and day out at work?
I guess the truth is you're always going to come up injured a little bit here and there, and you're never going to quite perform to the level that you really expect of yourself. But just know that what I tell a lot of people is that's why God made tomorrow, because we get another shot.
No
or another
doubt.
play or another game. And I think that's one of the early lessons, that you learn in that sport.
Okay. Last two questions. And this came from Trish. I didn't know this. There's a color you like to wear on Fridays, I believe. Is
Yeah.
that true? And tell me a little bit how that started. The Purple
Trish,
Fridays.
Trish has been wearing out that Google tab, hasn't she? Elder High School, our colors are purple and white, 1922. So we're coming up on 100 year next year in 2022. And so we have a big audience in Southwestern Ohio. And so I'll wear a shade of purple just about every Friday, I would say. And Jeff, I'm amazed at how many people take notice of that. And it reminds me that folks back home are still staying in contact. And that's
Yeah.
a cool feeling.
Well, I think you would agree with me. High school football, not only then, but even still to this day, is still part of the fabric of so many communities across this great country. You said you looked at the kind of the playoffs. I don't know if you know this. High School Football America created an algorithm. We rank teams nationally. You were in the top 100 for a while there. Had a little rough in the middle, but the league's good, so you can expect a loss there. You're number 16 in the state going in. So my question is this: how much attention do you pay to the Panthers? 30 years later?
Yeah, quite a bit. I would tell you, I got a house outside. I live in Manhattan, so I got a house out on Long Island. It's about 100 miles away. And a lot of times I'll seek refuge on a weekend to get out of the concrete and the steel of Manhattan and get away from the city for a little bit. And my school's so great. They started this program called the Elder News Network, ENN, and it wasn't always that. But about 16 years ago, I'm talking about 2005, 2006, I had a laptop out at my house. I mean, you could barely get the internet then. But forget about Wi-Fi. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. Well, not in the middle of nowhere, but it's a long way from Manhattan. And sure enough, man, I could log on to the streaming camera at the pit at Elder High School and watch the game. And I just thought, wow, this is stunning to me. Well, 15 years later, you've got ENN, the Elder News Network, which I'm a big supporter of, because I think that's the way the school can really communicate its message to not just its students and parents, but its alums who live all over the world and stay in contact with the school and want a moment in their day to be reminded of something that's going on at a high school that they graduated from and came to love and they were shaped by in their life. Well, now you can do that same thing, and I watch it on my iPhone wherever I am in America, and I can watch the games. And it's an added treat that enables me to stay connected with something that I dearly love.
Ah, that's great. So I guess, since you do pay attention, like I say, you're number 16 in our top 25 in the state.
Right.
You're 4-5. Big win over LaSalle. You're probably still celebrating that. So let's see, Colerain coming up on Friday. Any predictions on how this postseason could go?
I think the records are similar. I think Elder might be 4-6. So and Colerain's 5-5.
Yep, 4-5 versus 5-5. Yep, you got it.
Had several near losses, actually, by a point or two here and there. I think it's going to be a good game. I think Elder prevails, and I'll give him a touchdown.
There you go. And by the way, you did beat Moeller this year. Might have been a little bit later than the story you told. Bill, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed it. This is the reason we do these type of interviews, because football just can do so much for young men to sometimes get them out of bad situations and all that. And it also amazes me how quickly those memories come flooding back, right? You remember those 3 picks against Roger Bacon.
Yes, correct on that, for sure.
Thank you.
We won the game. Jeff, it's a pleasure being with you. I really respect what you're up to and what you're doing. So keep the spirit moving forward.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Jeff.